As if that wasn't enough, the Biden administration has waived background checks for caregivers.
Doctors have noticed a rampant increase in patients reporting severe neck and upper back pain. This growing trend is likely caused by people spending more time in front of their screens in the past year. It's become common that even a new term was coined, quarantine neck. This is why I highly recommend Magic Hands. Magic Hands uses revolutionary technology that recreates the feeling of a lifelike massage in your own home and reverses the pain caused by quarantine neck. Magic Hands features specialized materials, adjustable wrist supports, and multiple color options. 4 deep kneading nodes designed to recreate a lifelike shiatsu massage, customizable massages to make every session unique, heat functionality, and breathable mesh covering. Get Magic Hands today by going to www.magichandmassage.com. That's magichandmassage.com, or visit the link below.
Muchachos y muchachas, the whole migrant crisis, we have tried our best as much as we can as citizen journalists, as just sharers and purveyors of the truth, to try to get as much information out as possible, circulated, so people can see what's actually happening, as well as just a plain old outcry to the mysteries of it all. For instance, in Tennessee, they have been receiving children, planes and flights of children, special charters that are also being cross-flown throughout the country to different places. We don't know where these kids are going or where they're landing or who's taking care of them. And, you know, the entire thing is just very cryptic, creepy, and mysterious because nobody knows what is happening to these kids. Now, on the basis of people taking care of them, that's a huge concern because, as you guys may or may not know, that could result to a lot of trafficking, a lot of child sexual exploitation. If you have an undocumented person in this country, just plain old person, it could be an adult. It's hard to track that person. It's hard to, keep tabs or know the whereabouts. And so when you have children coming through the border and just being flown here and there, you don't know where they're ending up. And that's the most cryptic part. Well, as if that wasn't enough, the Biden administration has waived background checks for caregivers. I thought that this was a joke. I thought that this was a fictional movie, but this actually happened over a week ago. I'm surprised I even missed it. This is coming from the AP. U.S., they waive FBI background checks on caregivers at new migrant facilities, meaning that just pretty much anybody can take care of these kids. And I've actually had somebody outreach to me in my direct messages on one of my platforms, and they were, before I even was aware of this article, confirming these details in a personal experience, as this is part of their profession, and they were sort of whistleblowing that, hey, like this stuff is actually happening, like this is a concern, like this is bad. So the AP reports, the Biden administration is not requiring FBI fingerprint background checks of caregivers at its rapidly expanding network of emergency sites to hold thousands of immigrant teenagers, alarming child welfare experts who say the waiver compromises safety. And that is true because it will give you a slight example at the bottom of why that is. In a rush to get children out of overcrowded and often unsuitable Border Patrol sites, resident Joe Biden's team is turning to a measure used by previous administrations: tent camps, convention centers, and other huge facilities operated by private contractors and funded by the U.S. Health and Human Services. In March alone, the Biden administration announced it will open 8 new emergency sites across the South West, adding 15,000 new beds, more than doubling the size of its existing system. These emergency sites don't have to be licensed by state authorities or provide the same services as permanent HHS facilities. They also cost far more, an estimated $775 per child per day. Now, okay, let me just pause here. So it's just really crazy timing that, the initial concern was that we were in a plan apocalypse and, they had to social distance. Like, that was Psaki's initial, that was her excuse. Remember that? Like, this was just a couple months ago. This was her excuse. Like, we're worried about social distancing and all these things. And all of a sudden, with the coincidental fall of Fauci or Fauci, all of a sudden we're opening up more migrant centers, 15,000 beds, 15,000 beds. And, what's frustrating out of all this, what's really frustrating out of all this is that we had a problem before. We had a problem before all this. We had a problem with the CPS system, with the foster care system. We already had a problem with our own American children not getting the care and, concentrated focus that they need in order for them to sustain and rehabilitate their broken backgrounds, like coming from broken homes, broken parenthoods, broken families, and in which what results them to go back and be recycled onto the streets because they get put into this recycled system of CPS foster care that's not really, it's not a secure, there's a lot of loops that a child, they fall through these cracks and they get recycled back into the life is where I'm going with this. And so it's a huge grave concern that, they're able to find some sort of funding for all of these migrants. You know what I mean? Like, and look, I'm not completely insensitive. Like, I do want these kids taken care of because they're humans. They're vulnerable. They don't know what they're doing. They're going at the direction of their parents and their ignorant families to come over here thinking that everything's going to be dandy when really they're just caught up in these centers. But the thing is, this will have a trade-off. We are not caring for our American children. Our American children are suffering through this as well because the focus is being taken off of them. $775 per child per day. That is an expensive ticket. So anyway, get back to the story. The staffs that the sites quickly the sites quickly, the Biden administration has waived vetting procedures intended to protect minors from potential harm. I really want to say what's on my mind right now about Biden, but I have never seen in my adult life assessing presidencies a more willing resident to allow for potential harm against children. I'm just saying, never seen it. I'm young. I'm still a spring chicken, but it's a strange thing to witness as an adult. The contrast between one presidency and another, how willingly this particular individual is so intentional on allowing so much harm to children. Staff and volunteers directly caring for children at the new emergency sites don't have to undergo FBI fingerprint checks, which use criminal databases not accessible to the public and can overcome someone charging their name or using a false identity. I had a DM in my personal social media platform that was telling me the very thing that is being stated in this article. a real situation. So they don't have to undergo FBI prints, but the FBI fingerprint check, it directly registers this person as a valid volunteer. It checks all of their criminal past. And also, you don't have the ability to change your name. You don't have the ability to create a new identity as a caregiver. This example that I got in my inbox was particular on a potential child trafficker infiltrating the detention centers as a caregiver. Yep. So this is how I know that this is really going on, because this DM came before I read this article. And I was quite perplexed that it was already showing itself. It was already showing itself to be true, because, and that this can happen in a multitude of ways. But there are potential child traffickers as caregivers in these detention facilities. Because how would you know? They're not doing FBI fingerprint checks anymore. HHS issued a statement Friday saying that the direct care staff and volunteers must pass public record criminal background checks. Public records checks generally take less time, but are reliant on subject providing correct information. The agency says those giving direct care and supervised by federal employees or others who have passed fingerprint-based background checks in the emergency intake sites. HHS is implementing the standards of care used for children in an emergency response setting, the agency said. And it actually goes into some pretty fair criticism of Trump's presidency, which it's actually alarming, because if they had a problem then, and Trump actually really implemented policies against human trafficking, really, I mean, I don't have to tell you that he went hard at the border. I don't have to tell you that he had policies that deterred an influx of illegal immigration. I didn't have to tell you that. Even the leftists will tell you that. You know, they'll probably tell you that. So if there was a president that was so hard on immigration and, you know, these policies and keeping people from just crossing in willingly, if there was a problem even whilst then we really, really have a problem now. This is a criticism they have. During former President Trump's administration, HHS for months did not ensure FBI fingerprint checks or child welfare screenings were done for workers at large camp in Tornillo, Texas. An AP investigation in 2018 also found staff at another camp in Homestead, Florida, were not given routine screenings to rule out allegations of child abuse or neglect. And really, you know, that's more of that's the actual agency's problem. So could you imagine that when we didn't have this influx back then, how much of an influx we must have now, and how much they don't have the capacity to check for this, because there's such a big influx of children. HHS Inspector General warned then that the FBI fingerprint checks provide a unique safeguard and over most commercial background checks that search for a person's name. So if they had that criticism before, how much more are they going to criticize this administration, you know? While the various background checks could identify some past criminal convictions or sexual offenses, these checks were not as extensive as the FBI fingerprint background checks the Inspector General found. And this was back then, under Trump. So if you're willingly allowing an influx of caregivers who don't have to necessarily go through the extensive background check, how much more in danger are these kids? Laura Nodoff, the district attorney in Midland, Texas, where HHS opened an emergency site this month, said that without fingerprint checks, we truly do not know who the individual is providing child care. Direct care. That's placing the children under the care of HHS in his path, potentially of a sex offender, Nodoff said. They are putting these children in a position of becoming potential victims. Dr. Amy Cohen, a child psychiatrist who is an executive director of the Immigration for Advocacy group Every Last One, noted that HHS requires fingerprint checks of relatives who seek to take the children as part of a vetting process that takes more than 30 days on average. Failure to check fingerprints of a frontline facility staff exposes vulnerable migrant children to a significant danger of physical and sexual abuse, she said. The Biden administration has 18,000 children and teenagers in its custody, a figure that has risen almost daily over the last several weeks. So that's the gist of this information. Now, what I will also say as an actual volunteer for, safe houses, for, sex trafficking, survival, rehabilitation ministries. What I can tell you is with the experience that I have had in getting into these ministries, like, you have to go through an extensive check. There's one actual great example, one actual child trafficking, like, survivor safe house. Their whole background check consisted of fingerprints, tuberculosis test. You have to go through, a very extensive check. The reason is because you don't want to defeat the purpose of going into this space of survivors. So, I mean, it's crazy because I've been through these background checks, and I know how extensive they are. I know how long they take for them to deliver results. So this administration, in my opinion, they don't care. They're just completely, they're just trying to ship kids out, and we don't know where. So anyway, it's super concerning. I mean, we don't know where anything's going. I mean, and then we've got the whole flight thing. I mean, that's a whole nother story with the children go cross country and flights, and we don't know who's taking them or what. These charities, they could be fronting for something else. I mean, it's an entire concern. So just thought I'd let you know, the Biden administration has waived background checks, extensive fingerprinting for children. Extensive fingerprint background checks for children who are now more vulnerable than they were before. It was already vulnerable being that it was an influx, but now it's even more. They're presenting an even more vulnerable situation to these kids because, as I stated in that example that I got in my DMs, I will keep this person anonymous. There was a potential child trafficker that was infiltrating the likes of these detention facilities. So there you have it, guys. I appreciate your attention to this. This is completely, who's going to talk about this? Who's talking about this? It's insanity. I hope that you can inform somebody else about this. This is definitely information that is important. I mean, how depraved of a human can you be to not, report this, care for this? Like, this is a problem. These are kids. Anyway, I know I'm rambling. Guys, thank you so much for your attention. Please definitely share this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you soon. Muchachos y muchachas, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are a lot more videos like that and more on my new platform, NatlyDenise.tv, where you can also catch some of my old documentaries that you guys loved so much last year. That plus more. I just launched a new membership, Natly Denise Exclusives, in which we'll host new content, very exclusive content, some of which is based and unpopular with the mainstream, so therefore it has to be hosted there. Please consider signing up at NatlyDenise.tv. Also, please remember that I have a merch store, NatlyDeniseGear.com, which is also linked in my description below, in which a portion of every single sale will go towards human trafficking rescue and aftercare. Thank you guys so much for your support. See you later.